A very good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Uh, my name is Prasad Sangameshwaran, and I look after the editorial at egbrand.equity.com. And it gives me great pleasure to welcome you all to today's webinar on e-commerce strategy to sustain now and thrive later. As all of you know, delivering exceptional experiences with ease has expedited the digital commerce market globally. It's been pushing enterprises to rethink their strategy and capture new marketplace opportunities and digital customer segments. The customer experience or CX leaders now need to reposition themselves and redesign their strategies in order to cope up with the longer term shifts in consumer behavior, which in turn is leading to a rapid innovation of the customer journey. Uh, it is critical for businesses to demonstrate a differentiated level of customer service and make themselves more relevant and connected to customers in order to keep exploring newer business avenues. Understanding the urgency of these uh, new developments and technology which is rapidly advancing uh, and to drive the future, etbrandequity.com in association with Bond Group and Salesforce uh, welcomes you all today to this virtual session on e-commerce strategy to sustain now and to thrive later. To start today's webinar, we have a keynote session by Mrs. Arundhati Bhattacharya, who's the chairman and CEO at Salesforce India. She will be taking us through Salesforce India's strategy, their market outlook, and future plans. Welcome, ma'am. The stage is all yours.
Thank you, Prasad. Thank you for having me. And this is a great opportunity to talk to a number of people who I'm sure, are already very well versed on e-commerce and the need for it. But still, just to set the context, March 24th turned all of our worlds upside down. When the lockout was declared, we all thought that it would be for a month, maybe 60 days. There were all kinds of stories about the Spanish flu and how it took 2 years to disappear and all the difficulties that it created. There were pictures of ladies in gowns going around with masks. And we looked at it and we thought, no, we are in a 100-year later world and surely this couldn't happen to us. And what happened was much, much worse. A world that was highly, highly connected physically suddenly got absolutely torn apart in the sense that while we were all available, none of us could meet, none of us could actually understand what and how to face a situation where the physical seemed to have simply dropped off a cliff. And as a result of that, what happened was companies that were already a little digitally advanced because they thought that this was the thing that was good to have actually started gaining an upper hand. As you know, India is a very resilient country, and I think far more resilient than any other country I've seen in the world. And I speak from experience, of having gone through the demonetization, experience of having implemented a GST within a very short span of time, implementation of, merging 6 banks all on one day. So having gone through all of that, I knew that Indians are very resilient. And soon enough, the fish vendor who I would pay in cash was actually calling me to tell me, just order your fish on the phone. I'll have it ready, have it picked up at the curbside, and then pay me in my INB account. Okay. And that's how I've been buying fish till now, last 9 months. So, overnight people started innovating. The guy that I used to get some of my other supplies from started sending me WhatsApp messages with lists of all that he sells, urging me that, please continue to patronize my shop and I will have everything dropped off at your home within a few hours of you ordering it. So, the entire world itself changed. But what happens to those kinds of things where you would think touch is necessary. For instance, say something like shoes. Means whoever thought of buying shoes without actually trying them on? Shoes pinch. They pinch different people in different places because not all feet are built the same way. Well, what was created was that you can have your choice and you have an option to return. So try it out, find out which is the best fit. Otherwise, we are always there to take it back. But through all of this, what really happened was a lot of innovation. A lot of innovation by small, big, medium, large companies, as they realized that the world in which we could rely upon a way of doing things, that itself had changed. Initially, there were a number of naysayers. People would say, well, this is just a fad. 3 months down the line, things will be back to normal. A lot of people thought, well, we are already on Amazon and Flipkart and the big e-commerce sites, and we will continue to sell through that. What happened? Amazon and Flipkart closed down. Why? Because they couldn't arrange for the deliveries. Who thrived? The neighborhood shops, because for them, delivery was not a problem. They were still in your neighborhood and they could still approach you. As a result, what happened is companies began to understand that even though they may be selling on the large e-commerce sites, they also wanted sites of their own. They also wanted fail-safe mechanisms so that they would never have to be thrown asunder from their customers. Because at the end of the day, for any company selling anything, whether it be goods or it be services, you still need to connect. And if the connect is to come through a e-commerce site, then so be it. That's where they will connect. Services are now getting sold on the e-commerce site. And for instance, personal services, services like a haircut or a spa or a facial, you can actually now buy them on the site. The people who come, there are still people delivering it because that cannot be delivered without people. But the people who come, they look like, the doctors in an ICU. They are that way dressed in order to ensure your safety. But the service is actually still getting sold on the site. And that's where the world is coming to. And as it is coming to that, there is a realization that this is not all a bad thing. Actually, this could be a good thing as well. Today, for instance, I'm able to address a number of you people sitting in my home, comfort of my bedroom. Not that I love staying in my bedroom all day, I would love to get out of it as well. But all the same, I'm avoiding the commute. I'm avoiding the time that is spent getting, dressed for the occasion and going out and doing this talk. And at least, there are many things that you are doing within the city. It doesn't take up so much time. What if for a single meeting you are going to a different place? What if you're traveling internationally in order to address a bigger audience? I was just telling my colleague Dallas here that today we had a virtual meeting in which some of our best e-commerce solutions were getting presented to a client. Now, they were getting presented from various countries, not only from India. And it was so easy because for them, the only thing that you have to be a little cautious of is the time zone. But probably they're getting up at 7 in the morning to tell us how they are doing things. We also get up at 1:30 in the night once in a while in order to say what is the experience in India. But other than the time zone, the flexibility of reaching out far more frequently with much greater detail is now available because of the virtual platforms. I think things have been made easy. I remember, again in my earlier avatar as the chairman of SBI, we used to hold a banking conclave. And the last time that the finance minister addressed us, it was on the video conference because he could not come down that day being extremely busy. He chose to give a digital, have a digital presence. And we had a huge screen on stage and he took live questions. And later on, I called him and thanked him that thank you very much for setting all of this up. It was as good as having you here. Yes, maybe by a degree of 2 or 3 degrees, it would have been nicer had you been here because we would have got a little bit of the side talk as we took you to dinner or gave you tea and things like that. But other than that, the audience was absolutely mesmerized with what you said. In fact, that was the meeting in which he was saying what would be the next reforms, and he actually spoke about the electoral bonds on that meeting. And it was all virtual. But today, we know that that could be the routine. So you could get speakers who otherwise would be very difficult to come in and present to you. So I think, this platform, this virtual platform is something, while there will be a shift back somewhat to the digital, to the physical, as we open up. And as Mr. Ambani often says that we are in a phygital world, so there will be a physical aspect to it. But the digital is going to take up more and more of the way we do things. Plus, given the fact that the current generation, the young generation, is an impatient generation, I have a lot of faith in them, but I don't have too much of faith on their patience. They want something, they want it now. They don't want to wait for the next 24 hours. And that is not possible unless you have that digital platform to serve them, unless that e-commerce platform that you are having is what they want. But believe me, there is e-commerce platforms of various sorts. Some of them, they drive you up the wall. You just cannot get through to what you want. And some of them are so good, you don't want to leave them because they know exactly what you want when you want it. It's not that they are being intrusive, they very unobtrusively make the right suggestions, take you to the right slot, see that you get what your choice is. So for instance, I was trying to buy certain um, bedspreads and bed sheets, some of the essentials, so to speak. And I don't like them to be, the bold floral kind or the very dark colors. I go to a particular website, they normally take me to the light colors, to the whites. They very rarely, direct me to anything which is not my liking. Why? Because I have bought on their site twice or thrice and they know what I like. Okay. So the fact of the matter is things have become so much easier. Imagine walking the aisles of the malls, trying to get what you want. Instead, you get it all sitting in your bedroom at 11 in the night when you are relaxed and you can order everything. So the fact is, this is a channel that is going to hugely help our connect to the customer. And therefore, not having this channel, I think, is no longer an option. It's no longer good to have. It's a must have. And I'm sure, as you go through whatever we've been doing, you will realize what kind of a advantage this all brings to the customer. So with that, I'd like to sort of hand it back to Prasad. I hope I've set the context correctly, but my own feeling is that things are changing. It's good to change as things change, because otherwise the, we risk the possibility of becoming outdated, outmoded, out of touch, and that's not what we want to do in respect of our customers. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Arundhati, for those insightful remarks. Uh, it's now my turn to welcome Prakash Gurumurthy, Managing Director, APJ, uh, which I would think is Asia Pacific Japan for the Bond Group. Welcome, Prakash. Prakash is here to share with us Bond Group's point of view on digital experience management and enterprise commerce. And he will also be sharing us insights on his company's partnership with Salesforce, which includes a lot of interesting case studies and takeaways. Over to you, Prakash.
Thank you, Prasad, and thank you, Arundhati ma'am, and Jackson from Puma, and Dallas from Salesforce. It's an absolute pleasure to be speaking here, and also all the members, the CXO members who are in the forum. Great to be speaking with you. I had prepared a deck, but I think while I'm getting the presenter rights, I will start talking about what I had prepared. I think there is a often repeated what do you call joke that that kind of comes through in terms of who accelerated digital transformation. And is it the CMO, or is it the CEO, or is it the CIO, or is it the head of e-commerce? And in WhatsApp, it says with some 10 smileys talking about COVID. I think there's a tremendous uptake about brands going digital, especially brands going in the D2C route, brands building up marketplaces, brands enhancing their digital presence that they have already invested upon. And I would call it baby Amazon stores, like how Arundhati ma'am mentioned during COVID, where the vegetable vendor suddenly became the competitor for Jeff Bezos, where he has a catalog on WhatsApp and he's targeting the customers much more effectively without any marketing cloud or marketing automation, because he has the sort of the customer data quite effectively, and he just puts a simple catalog on WhatsApp and delivers a customer experience and delivers trust, convenience, and value. So broadly, as you know, Born is in the business of digital experiences. We have been in the space for over a decade. We are a part of Tech Mahindra, and all we do is digital and commerce enablement. We don't do anything other than that. So we have grown quite significantly during this time, and we have always seen that customer experiences is very critical, and we also have seen that 1 in 26 customers complain and the rest say nothing about it. They just relieve the experience, and they don't buy in the digital store. So I think a lot of times what we are seeing when I talk about enhancing the existing digital presence, we see customers amplifying in the back end, amplifying on understanding or listening to customers more. During the pandemic, we have seen a lot of brands uh, investing on listening. How do you listen to customers? Because it's not just the customers who talk more about the particular brand, but it's the silent customers who are the killers for you, right? Uh, Moving on, we have also seen some of the oft-repeated topics. We have seen that brands which has invested in CX initiatives, like how Jim Collins says about good to great, it's about the sustained investments has doubled the revenue within 36 months. We have Jackson, who's going to talk about Puma in the later stages of the presentation. Jackson representing Puma with Born and Salesforce. There's been a great investment by Puma in CX, and there is a great potential for them to increase their revenue and customer engagement, right? We have also seen that a lot of customers, three-fourths of the customers, are trying new shopping methods. It's already called as digital by Arundhati ma'am, but they are beefing the backend infrastructure to buy online, pick up in store. We have seen curbside pickup building up in many regions where they just don't want to enter the store. They will kind of order on the phone, and then they will do a curbside pickup. We have seen that 70% of the customers have said that they will shop online irrespective of COVID or non-COVID. And we have also seen that 25% of digital commerce becomes 25% of sales over the next 3 to 5 years. Right? So what it really means to all of us, and there are many more metrics, but uh, I think to kind of get everybody on the same baseline, we have also seen 10 years of growth 10 years of growth in just 90 days in the US e-commerce penetration in the second quarter of COVID, and that kind of shook all of the digital world like crazy, because the amount of proliferation and the amount of spending and the amount of change management that has happened is insane, right? Across all boards, and not just transactions or taking over. Uh, so I think I'll skip this part. So what we felt was we wanted to kind of, having done over 500 plus digital and e-commerce implementations across 40 end markets, we felt that customer experience for a lot of brands is a combination of three things. It's a combination of brand experience, it's a combination of behavioral experience, and it's a combination of book of record experience, right? So if you look at a brand like Puma, or if you look at a brand like Vishal Mega Mart, which is again one of Salesforce customers in India, it's all about looking at user personas. It's all about looking at user segments, the user journeys for that particular brand, creating a personalized content that goes from awareness to advocacy, which is the first layer of brand experience, which is what your commerce store or your D2C store kind of signifies, right? And then how do you take that into the 15 channels, which is what we call as behavioral experience, which is taking it from web to mobile to social to voice to email campaigns to packaging to radio to a human being on the store, and taking that forward. We have seen during COVID the voice channel becoming a very important channel in Asia. We have seen that there's an re-emergence of that particular channel, where voice became prominent, and then from voice, web transactions increased, right? And last but not the least, how do you stitch the brand, the behavioral experience to book of record, which is how do you connect it to your backend CRM, or the ERP or the OMS or the data system, so that it gives a unified customer experience framework, right? So a lot of brands have effectively done that. We are also in the phase with Puma, for example, in the book of record phase, where we are streamlining. We are looking at options to streamline inventory management. We are looking at various options. Puma is taking a leadership role there, and of course, the brand experience combined with behavioral experience is coming through quite well, right? One of the nuances that we have seen in the last 6 months is the rise of marketplaces. We have also seen a lot of brands or a lot of conglomerates or big houses looking at investing in e-commerce. We have seen, tremendous uptick in that area also, where they are looking at co-opetition rather than just competition. The brands are looking at how do you kind of bring other multi brands and create a framework whereby you capitalize on your traffic, and you create a curated or a verticalized marketplace where you can also uphold your brand and also try to kind of leverage the customer acquisition costs and things like that, right? So these are some of the things that we have seen in the market, and as you can see from our perspective, all the digital players, not just born, all the digital players have grown quite tremendously because of the uptick. There are three use cases that we see. D2C players who never will go into D2C are getting into D2C. We have seen sectors like automobile sectors where they are looking at empowering the dealer network, taking a leadership role in digitizing the dealer network, and also giving a digital journey where somebody can buy a car in like 11 clicks or 12 clicks, right? Which was not a regular feature before the pandemic, right? Or we are seeing customers now looking at enhancing their omni-channel capabilities or book of record experience capabilities, and we are also seeing brands looking at channel refactoring, where they have been operating in like 4 or 5 channels. But how do you do channel refactoring where your brand experience is consistent in 15 channels, right? So there is a tremendous optimism in this area, and it, as Arundhati ma'am said, it's a must-have. we have always seen that digital can grow revenue. We also see that digital grows revenue, reduces costs, and also mitigates risk if implemented properly. And those are some of the nuances that we come across as we kind of take it forward. So with that, again, I don't want to spend too much of time crunching data and metrics and also giving the best practices. I thought the framework kind of sets the tone, and again, there's a lot of things that are happening in this space. So I would like to kind of move to the fireside chat after Dallas' speech, and it's a pleasure to interact with all of you. And over to you, Prasad.
Thank you very much, Prakash, for that presentation. Next, we have Dallas Krishnan, uh, who's the Area Vice President at Salesforce. Dallas will talk about the Salesforce commerce and strategy. So over to you.
Thank you, first and foremost, Prasad, and thank you, Prakash. Always wonderful to listen to you. Of course, a great context set by Arundhati with wonderful stories from her own experience. Let me start by thanking all of you, who have joined in today. And as a society, I think all of us are doing our part as we are, progressing every single day and make in the context of, in some sense, conquering the pandemic, right? We, of course, and if you look around, we all know the fear has been obviously conquered. While the disease is, there are frontline workers who are really working hard, all the way from scientists to health workers who are helping us fight the disease as well. So thanks to every one of you in playing your respective parts. Let me just, I'll just have about 3 to 5 minutes, and I'll just set a context of what we are seeing here at Salesforce. So broadly, if you see, there are 3 crisis that is running around, of course, right? I spoke about the public health crisis that all of us are facing. Dovetail that with the economic crisis that's around, right? So there are some sectors which are really, really deeply impacted, still struggling, while some of the other ones have been fairly lucky in the context of the recovery path, right? There have been multiple theories around S-shaped curves to W-shaped curves to, I don't know what letter of the alphabet they could have used further, but things seem to be better than what it is, right? At the same time, there is also a business crisis, right? And this is a crisis around, in spite of your recovery, that is being driven by changes that our customers and your consumers have undergone in the last few months, right? And that is going to bring a new perspective in the context of how you deal with your customers, right? One of the core things that we have seen that consumers and retailers are doubling down on digital, right? So these are some observations that we thought we were seeing. We have our retail advisory board, and one of the speakers we actually spoke about that we have had more digital transformation in the past 4 weeks than I've seen in the past 3 years, right? This was something that we had organized sometime in the month of August, right? The second one, and Arundhati spoke about it, Prakash spoke about it, while the physical stores have a wonderful role to play, social has become a very effective acquisition channel as well, right? So what was, something which was kept as, that is the e-commerce piece, or that is the separate piece. It's become an effective acquisition channel to a degree where it has now become, the store has become a component of the digital. It was earlier the other way around. If you think about it, some of you would, in your own respective organizations where you've had e-commerce projects, you would have seen where e-commerce was run separately and the store was the big daddy. Now the store has integrated into digital, right? That's the second perspective that I would love to share. The third and fourth is essentially in the context of how contactless engagement has really soared. One of our customers actually spoke about, it's moved away from omni-channel to now he is talking about how do I get my inventory out into the stores to fulfill online orders, right? And the last one, of course, ma'am spoke about it in a very wonderful way where talk about how shopping at the edge has increased, right? Be it the WhatsApp shopping along with your the neighborhood kirana shop, or you're shopping for a personal service like a haircut or a spa that ma'am referred to, where the entire that part of the shopping has accelerated right to the edge, right, in the context of digital. And then of course there is a physical service to be delivered that happens. So the shopping is really delivering to the edge. Pickup from the stores have increased, right, close to about 7%, right. So we are seeing those trends where the edge shopping has also increased quite a bit. So these are some data that we have all seen. Yes, there will be recovery. While in the pre-COVID days to October, there was about the retail penetration online was reached about 10%. But at the same time, we believe that this will settle in the range of 5 to 6%, right? And this is a Jeffrey statement just about last week based on their analysis. One of the category which we have noticed, which is the most resistant to digital, was the grocery segment, right? And here is this market that is booming, extremely well. And our trends show that it was not just in Q2, right, which is at the peak of the lockdown. Actually, Q3 grocery traffic is much more than Q2, right? So we are starting to see that segment where difficult categories are also starting to go digital as well, right? The market, of course, continues to grow. What we have seen is 27% growth, and we do think this is something that is going to stay for some more time in different ways. I just wanted to leave 4 perspectives for those of you who are embarking on these changes, or you have done something and you're looking for the next evolution, right? 4 things to remember. Number 1, think of a customer-centric business process and move away from a product or a process-centric business model that you have run previously, right? And I'll give you a little more perspective on this because this is an interesting part in the context of a mindset that you need to do. The second one, of course, is to create an ability for various teams to come together, so that one, you have aggregated sources of different data that come together, and at the same time teams that come together that improve your customer ability to deliver customer experience, improve your channel visibility, and at the same time, in a digital context, gives you more business predictability, right? So that's the second context that I would want you all to remember. The third one is sense and respond. This is where I think we talk about the resilience. Ma'am talked about resilience in terms of various us as a country and various companies and customers as people and consumers of technology. What you need to do is to constantly be able to change, right? You need to be able to change your business model. You need to be able to change your engagement model. You need to be able to change your service model as the behavioral patterns emerge, right? As new technological innovations emerge. So you need to have ability to constantly sense what is happening. So you need to know what's happening, and at the same time be able to respond rapidly, because their inability to respond rapidly is actually a huge loss of business or an opportunity which somebody else will take it, right? So the speed is an important element that is required. So one is to ability to sense what's happening, the other is to be able to respond. In order to enable these things, one of the things that I would all of you want to think about is when you build a technology stack, think of it something that is very lean in the context of setting it up. Don't take heavy technology stack. Make a technology that is, 1, lean, 2, in the context of deployment and speed is fast. In the context of development and innovation is much rapid in terms of how they change and bring changes to you, and you have the ability to adopt that change, right? So these are the 4 principles that I would want to leave. I'll cover the first and the last one a little bit more and then hand it back. Because in the context of the customer-centric transformation model, one of the most important things in the digital world, in order to be customer centric, is to earn that trust of your customer, and that is driven by transparency. Customers constantly need transparency in the context of what they are engaging with you, where your order is, what is the status, if you have a service request, when is the person coming to serve you, right? What if there is a order that is on the way, they would like to know what is the exact time that is getting scheduled so that they can arrange for a pickup at the gate of their society, right? The transparency is a very important part. The second part is the trust that you as a brand deliver, right? If you as a brand are not earning the trust digitally, trust me, being customer centric is a far experience that you will have to do. You may have business models around it, you may have the best of the product, but if in the digital world if it is not driven by transparency and trust, you will struggle with this. Four dimensions here in terms of delivering customer experience. The customer relationship is a joint ownership between you and your customer, right, on both sides. And then, of course, you want to always use that relationship to maximize the customer value, both for yourself and for the customer, right? There is a two-way engagement that you need to do. The engagement with your customer needs to be a two-way connectivity, right? So the last one, and this is around in the context of technology, and very, very important point, choose your technology stack. While it'll be wonderful if you choose us as Salesforce, but doesn't matter if it is not Salesforce, if it will be anything else. But think of aspects in technology that allows you to adopt faster, right? While I have seen technologies where you have taken a monolithic architecture, converted into small pebbles, containerized it, but at the same time, it remains, all it does is that it has containerized and put it on on a infrastructure which is on cloud. And it allows you to take one element of the cloud in the context of scale, which is the ability to scale fast. But with the piece that you miss out the most, and the piece that impacts customer experiences the most, is to drive innovation faster. Are you on a version that is constantly changing and then you are on an older version? Are there new things getting launched and new capabilities that are getting launched, and how quickly can you adopt them? That can differentiate your experience. Like we spoke about differentiation in the digital world to be an important element. So think of platforms that allow you to constantly stay current, which means there is no back version. There is no version 1 and version 2. You are always on the current version. That is a very important element in the context of technology. Apart from it being a lean technology stack, extensible in the context of how you build it, your ability to do your own stuff. So I'll just keep these four dimensions, right, in mind for all of you. Once again, customer-centric business processes, one team aligned to customer, ability to sense and respond, and lean possible technology stack. With that, I'll hand it back to you, Prasad, and we could get into our conversation, and look forward to hearing from all of you as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dallas. And let me thank all of you for those very insightful remarks. Now we move on to a small panel discussion where Prakash and Dallas will be joined by Puma's Jackson Fernandez. Jackson is the head of e-commerce at Puma. Welcome, gentlemen, once again. To start off with, the first question that often gets asked is, we often hear this phrase, and we journalists do so more often than probably the three of you, is that every company needs to be customer centric and not product centric. But is this easier said than done? What are the stumbling blocks?
You're asking Jackson or me?
Any of you can take it.
Okay, yeah, I think I'll start and I'll have Jackson add on to it. I think, see, it's right. It's easier said than done. I think, as they say, right, customer centricity has to be in the DNA. It's not that suddenly you wake up one day and you think you got to be customer centric, right? Because one of my oft-repeated pet peeve is a lot of brands would invest millions of dollars in creating an e-commerce site, but will not incentivize the store associate for online sales. So as an example, there could be a fashion brand and they have 300 stores in a particular country, and they have invested millions of dollars in digital channels. And a customer goes into the store, he doesn't get the size M, and the store associate says, "Yeah, we don't have size M." That's it, right? But the store associate puts open an account for that particular customer, have him buy that particular top or shirt online, because he's also incentivized on digital sales, right? It's a very simple use case of customer centricity, right? In terms of how do we look at it. Complicated use case of customer centricity is call center, right? Somebody going into the call center and then waiting for a return, for example, which is always a nuance, right? So I would say if it is not in the DNA, a platform can never achieve customer centricity. A partner can never achieve customer centricity. It has to start from the CEO, from the top, to look at customer centricity. At least that's my 2 cents. Over to you, Jackson.
I completely agree on that. So I think so. Whenever we're like solving for anything, I think we'll have to keep the consumer at the center, and all the technology, the products, the processes, all should solve to the ultimate goal of how we are solving for the consumer. Whether it be deciding on how we portray the content on the site, what kind of merchandising we do, what's the kind of platform capabilities that we build, right? It's not just this, you have a product or a technology, and that you deliver it to your consumer and say, okay, the consumer will need to fit into the constraints and the constructs of your products or the technology. Right? That doesn't work, because given the times and the competition, it's always consumers are being serviced in the right way that they need in other platforms. So it's very important for us to think consumer first, and think about our processes to solve for that across the value chain, right from creating thinking about your product, about your content, the platforms that you have, how you service them from your warehouses and stores, to the end consumer support or customer support with your call center. I think that's given.
Yeah. Great perspectives, and I probably just add one additional element, being the technologist sitting on this side of the table. It is the ability to bring that, all the customer information together to the agent or the merchandiser or to the person in the store, to so that he has that right information. Sometimes it's the inability to bring that data together and that insight of the customer to be visible, where the customer goes through the experience of repeating and being, and all of us have gone through this experience where we get handed off from one chain to the other, from a web channel to the phone channel to an email channel, and then there are complete disconnects, right? You're almost always repeating your experiences, or be it positive or negative. The ability to bring that data together so that everybody sees one data, everybody has all the information captured, is an important element as well, right?
Okay, moving on to the next question. In the case of B2B companies, does social listening work? That's a question from one of our attendees.
Did you say B2B companies?
Yeah, B2B.
Yeah.
No, I think, see, one of the things that we always think that B2B is different than B2C. B2C is way different than B2B and things like that. I always say that, B2B is selling to the dealers, and B2C is selling to the customers. And the dealers always have a better Sunday experience than the Monday experience, right? So they always get a fantastic customer experience when they are accessing their personal portals, their personal stuff. But when they go into a brand's B2B portal or a brand's B2B thing, it is very cumbersome, and it's not coming together, right? So listening is very important for B2B because of a couple of reasons. Your KPI gets improved like crazy. One of the key KPIs in B2B is order to fulfillment, or order to remittance, or lead to quote. Say if I'm running a large scale refrigeration company, or a large scale heating ventilation unit company, and if a customer comes in and says, I want to have a custom built refrigerator for a 100,000 square feet warehouse, typically the sales guy will say, give me a month. I'll come back to you, because I need to calculate the box load. I need to calculate various other parameters. I need to put it into my pricing engine. And then there are 4 systems that will talk internally. And then, he'll come back in 28 days or 29 days. But in digital, you can actually get it within a minute through design thinking and through customer centricity. So rather than a dealer waiting for like 28 days, you can get it within less than 1 minute. But for you to get that KPI and for you to get that pain point, you got to listen and you got to understand what your dealers are talking about, or what your distributors are looking at, How is your DSO getting impacted? What is your working capital life cycle in the whole process? So listening plays a big role. Unlike, it'll be very sharpened listening, unlike a B2C listening, because in a B2C listening, it's like many. This is like few, many, but listening still remains an integral part to solve the pain points.
Maybe in one more perspective, Prakash, great insights there. Is the fact that finally, when you sell to a trade channel, it does reach an end consumer in some form or the other, right? It either becomes an input to something that is manufactured by somebody and then it reaches an end consumer, or you are selling like an FMCG company where you sell to the trade channel and then the trade channel reaches on to your end customer, an automotive company, a tire manufacturer. So you think about from a customer journey perspective, will that impact the inability to make the experiences seamless across these various channels? Will it be important, right? Is there insights that is available to you as a company, as a brand, even if I may operate through a digital? Will that insight given to my trade channel, will it be useful so that he provides the right experience back to my consumer when he interacts with, right? So, let's say in Jackson's case, maybe he may have franchised operations. There is a great promotion that is running, but at the same time, it is built around the context of the customer and communicated to the customer in the right way, versus just a promotion. Hey, here is your 5% off and additional margins for a particular volume. But if it is communicated to the dealer as, hey, these designs are wonderful for these types of personas, and if you sell this more, here is what it is. That input as a brand is important for you as that can be passed on to the B2B channel and then can finally impact the customer experience. So yes, the short answer to the question whoever asked, the answer is yes. You have to always go back to that first framework that I said, think of the business process end to end. How is it going to impact your end customer? If that's going to impact your end customer, there is value to it.
Brilliant. The next question is about security. The question basically is that, most companies are looking for, uh, you know, uh, tools that deliver but are also economical. And in the pursuit of, meeting your economical goals, you sometimes compromise on security. So how do you strike the right balance? That essentially is the question.
Yeah, maybe I'll pick that, given that's coming from a security angle, and I'll pass it on to Jackson's in the context of a practitioner. I would say, as technology providers, the way we would look at it is that it's the job zero, right? It is built day zero. It is not an afterthought in the context of something that you need to have, or it's a choice that you need to add at an extra cost. Be it in terms of privacy of data, be it in terms of security and encryption of a transaction, be it in terms of a transaction integrity of your own database, and the ability to manage your own business with all the controls that you need within your own enterprise, right? Security is not just an external thing. You also need to think in the context of internal. All of these have to be structurally built into any platform. I would say it is not even a point in question. At Salesforce, and again, I'll probably speak for our brand in that context, we'd call it job zero as trust. And we say without trust, there is nothing else that's built on, right? And around trust is where we provide transparency, be it in terms of our security controls, protocols, what we do, and all of that and tools that are available for our customers to deploy based on their choices. So it's not an optional item, it's a necessary item.
Sorry, Prasad, just like 1 minute on that. From a practical perspective, like we being the custodian of our consumer data, right? Consumers are trusting us with their purchase information, with their credit card information, right? It's very important for us that the kind of platform and the kind of systems that we expose them are robust and secure, that that kind of protects them in the right way. So for us, so the question that, do you cut corners around that? Absolutely not. That's the number one priority when we're thinking about, like, coming back to your first question, being totally consumer centric. This comes right on top when you're thinking about being consumer centric, right? Because at no point can you breach their trust by going into or choosing a technology platform process that kind of exposes them to any of these risks. That's period.
Brilliant. The question to Jackson is that, what was the digital outreach of Puma before the pandemic, and how did you kind of rescale or readapt? Because as all of us know and agree that, there's been a digital acceleration at probably 150 mph. So how did you kind of
So the good thing about us is that so we have been making significant investment in the whole digital way of doing business for the last 4 or 5 years. In fact, we were one of the first brands in our category to actually start selling online, thinking about D2C, setting up the marketplace business, heavy investment across the value chain, from supply chain, marketing automation. In fact, we bringing the best of the class in terms of platforms, in terms of implementation partners. That has always been the #1 priority. Even before the pandemic, a significant, a majority chunk of our marketing investment was always digital.
Brilliant.
So I don't know till what you heard. So I was saying that we have made significant investments on that front. The good thing about having invested before the pandemic is that once the pandemic hit for us, it was like you take the blow and then you start afresh, and you can run at a speed which is significantly faster than others. So that's why once we were back and the business was back, we were able to ship out from our warehouses, and our stores were open. We saw the kind of uplift which maybe some of our peers and competitors could not see, because we've already been investing on this front for some amount of time.
This is
brilliant.
Yeah,
this is one aspect, Prasad, where you can deploy and be faster, and you can drive at 150 miles per hour and still not get challaned.
Prakash, the question for you is that, what are some of the CXO challenges and pitfalls that you are seeing, based on your experience in running a successful CX-centric transformation exercise?
Yeah, great question. I think there are a couple of them. One of the oft-repeated challenges that CXOs face is looking at digital transformation in a siloed manner. A lot of transformation is business transformation. Essentially, you got to rewire the business, you got to rewire the operations, you got to rewire the supply chain, you got to rewire the customer acquisition, you got to rewire the people, which is very critical. The internal teams that you're looking at, how do you look at talent acquisition internally for your team, and how do you build a digital organization and build it, right? So that is one of the oft repeated challenges that we see, where digital transformation is seen as a project and not necessarily a journey, right? So we do see that coming quite often. Secondly, while you asked in the beginning, which was a very philosophical question, which is everybody talks about customer experience, but how easy or difficult it is. I think that the bringing the DNA of customer experience is quite tough, and unless it emanates from the top, it's quite tough to then invest, because I have seen a lot of CMOs or CIOs or head of commerce saying, I don't have budget, I cannot justify investing in this channel. I'm already making like $300 million on stores. Why should I invest in digital channel? Is it really worthwhile? So I think the element of, it's not about investing in a digital channel, but it's about the element of customer centricity that goes in terms of how do you put the customer in the center and look at all of these as channels, right? I would say those are the two key challenges. Of course, other two which are very transactional are, what platform are you selecting? What is the digital or e-commerce platform you're selecting, and who is the partner you're looking at? And the partner will have bumps along the road, but how do you sustain that journey with the partner? to enable both the brand and the partner in this whole journey, right? So those are the four things that I would add to.
Just adding, just
Yeah,
adding to
yeah,
that,
yeah,
I think
yeah, please.
it's very important to take in the right partner. I just want to build upon that, right? So you select the right partner, with the technology provider, the implementation partner, because see, we are only seeing one dimension of the problem and the problem that manifests most in front of us. But the right partner probably sees it in multiple different businesses or other implementations. So it's very important for the partner to come and show you the mirror and say you guys should be prepared for this in the future. You need to be building on these kinds of processes, these kinds of features, and this is the kind of uplift that you can see, and that we had seen during the COVID period, because those 2 months when we were kind of in a limbo, we were working very closely with our partners to kind of build those features, which when the lockdown kind of eases off, can help us push that incremental growth. We already had some tailwinds, but we had the platform and the processes and the features ready to ride upon that wave. I think that's a very, very critical.
Okay, Jackson. Before we move on to Dallas, one quick question. As a client, would you onboard a new partner in times like these?
But I think this is as best good as a time as any other time. You will still have to do your due diligence. You'll have to ask all the hard questions. You have to see the kind of implementations they have done. Also, it's very important. Again, circling back on the previous question, you need to see how your partner pushes you. That I am a little wary when my partner says yes to everything that we say. It is very important that they come with their own perspective. They have a very a strong thinking process about what is right and what is not right, and they voice it appropriately. And that gives me a confidence that if I fail, which sometimes I might, there is somebody who is competent enough to actually help us out. But COVID, no COVID, that's the mantra. Whenever we
And I'm
implement it.
for sure that Prakash is somebody I've seen him walk away because he thought what the customer was wanting him to do was not right, and he had the courage to walk away. So credit
And
to you.
sometimes we ask these trick questions just to see how they react.
Correct. No, thank you, Dallas. And Prasad, just to let you know, we born as a digital partner for Puma, just so that you are aware. So your question is very sort of like, very
We've
good.
had those tough conversations with Prakash and team.
Yeah.
So
No, but
Prasad,
so we got a candid response from Jackson because he was taken unawares.
Correct.
just
Exactly.
wanted to share a small perspective, personal anecdote here. And I recently bought a wearable device, right? And I bought it on a marketplace, right? Now, the activation process of the device, what was in the box was incomplete, right? For some reason, there was one code that was missing, right? In the packaging. So there was some specific code that had to be stuck into it, then that was missing. And from there started, if I think about me as a consumer, I had absolutely no mechanism to go back to my marketplace and search for a service experience because, by mentioning that the code was missing in the packet, I was not getting any response, obviously, from the platform, not expected. So I went to that brand.com website and started searching for the help desk, right? And so there it was. It was a newly launched product, absolutely brand new launch. And I go to the brand.com website. To my horror, I don't find any documentation on the product in terms of how to activate the piece. Comes the next step, which is, okay, now that I haven't found anything on self-service, the next thing that I did was, let me call their call center. I call the call center, and then it gives me option A, option B, option C, right? It says, have you bought this product, this second product, third product? The product that they launched just now, I had no option. And I had no option to speak to anybody. And there it was, my brand experience ended, right? Thankfully, right, I knew somebody there, right? Think about it this way. And the non-scalable model, I had to go to the non-scalable model, know somebody, pick up the phone, tweet, or go to the negative part of the experiences, go tweet, Facebook, so that somebody will pay attention and somebody will reach out to me. Now, this is probably a journey where when you think about revamping, right? And I talk of this as a framework in how when you build this, are you just renovating your processes? Oh, you know what? I have a selling process. I'm just renovating it online, right? Or are you transforming that process? Because I'm taking it online, I need to now think about all the scenarios of how that experience will be delivered, right? So the mindset required is one, you need from a renovate, re-platform mindset of what you did previously, just automate, digitize. You need to move away from that to transforming how an experience get delivered in the new world, right? So we typically talk of three stages. There is a renovate, is the space where most customers operate in. They take the money, take a look at an existing process, automate it. Before you do that, we say at least evolve to a point where you're saying, can I transform that process by keeping that end-to-end customer process in mind? It's not just a selling platform. It's a sales plus service plus brand experience plus a customer connect platform. How can I build that so that I'm more customer centric? Then comes the opportunity from data, which is around, is there a better way of reoperating my business model itself, right? Is there an opportunity to start something new? So which we call as the transform phase. So we ask customers, think of your projects in these phases. Are you just renovating? Is there an opportunity to evolve into a more customer centric process? And then is there an opportunity from the data that you're seeing in to completely remodel your business completely?
Thank you so much. No, very, very interesting anecdote. And, it actually leads us to this thing about, when companies are all talking about the unified view of the customer and so on, how can you actually create the innovation and enrich the experience across touch points, be it physical, digital, or phygital? So any thoughts on this? All of you can.
Prakash, you go first.
Yeah, I'll go first. Yeah, so no worries. So I think again, like innovation is always we have to kind of factor in the word innovation, right? So what is innovation? You kind of combine two known things and get an unknown thing, right? Like even if you take iPod, Steve Jobs combined like Walkman, phone and basically a camera to get an iPod, right? So we take two known things and get an unknown thing, right? So a lot of times for brands, we look at innovation across three quadrants. We look at market-facing innovations. We look at internal innovation. So it could be related to process. It could be related to the market-facing innovation. So the process-related innovations is a part of the frame that we spoke about last time, which is also what Dulles very eloquently put across about the phases of how we are looking at digital transformation. Harvard has given a very good frame. It's called the BOCP framework, where you look at business operations, customer, and people, and how do you kind of rewire the entire digital flow within that organization, and you get a digital quotient and you try to innovate in each of the phases. The market facing is a little bit tough because that's where Dulles points always comes across, which is the CDP, which is how do you kind of nurture your customer data. Your structured data is always there, like for example structured data on Puma is always there, but how do you kind of take the unstructured data and kind of get some insights and then look at it, right? And how do you kind of bundle it, right? And that's where I think innovation, market facing innovation kind of comes across really quite well. Indian brands are very efficient in market facing incremental innovations. They call it jugaad or whatever. But I think the point is we by nature we are very adaptive, and we are as a DNA we are very good incremental innovators, right? We like how we spoke in the beginning. My vegetable shop owner, who I think he's not even crossed third standard. I think he knows how to put a catalog on WhatsApp, and he knows how to kind of sell it to me and maybe like 400 people in my territory, and get Google Pay activated and do it, right? Nobody has taught him, but at least he has innovated on both process, customer experience, and a new channel for him to survive. So I think there are multiple frames around it, and listening. Whatever we spoke in this conversation comes there. Listening becomes a very important parameter there. What you listen from the customer, right? You can innovate. You can innovate on customer service. You can innovate on product features that you bundle upon. Like, lot of people innovate on bundling along with a particular product. Like I see Zodiac shirts these days, giving a, what do you call, the masks is like the design of the shirt, right? Like, you get the face mask which is similar to the design of the shirt. It's not a big innovation, but it's just a sort of, if a formal person wears a Zodiac shirt, he gets the similar design face mask, right? It's nothing spectacular, but it's just like, how do you kind of look at taking through the innovation. There are social innovations also. Like one of our customers, by name Razer in Singapore, they did a phenomenal social innovation. They are one of the top gaming companies in the world. High consumer brand, and really doing quite well, leveraging social media to the fullest. So what they did during the pandemic was, this is a Singaporean company, by origin, and the CEO actually came to Facebook, and he said, "I'm going to give 5 masks free for COVID." Right now, they are not producing masks, but it's just that they use their factory to produce masks, and created, again, not big innovation, but it gives that belonging to a particular brand. Okay, Razer is a gaming company, it's a capitalist company, but still, I think it gained a lot of engagement in the social media. So there are many examples like that, but over to Jackson on from a Puma side, right? Yeah.
Yeah, so for us, that's a very like pertinent question in these times of how do you get the overall view of the consumer, the single view of the consumer that Prasad, you were referring to. In our context is very important because we are like, in a sense, we are like an omni-channel approach, right? We have 370 plus stores. We have our distribution networks, our large format partners, and then we have a strong presence online through Puma.com and the marketplace business. Now, many times what happens is there is a disparate experience for the consumer if they are hopping from an offline store to a .com, etc. and stuff. And over time, we are generating all these signals from across the board, across consumer touch points, from the stores, from marketplaces, from Puma.com, etc. The challenge right now for us is how do we weave this all together to provide a coherent consumer experience that's so that the consumer views a single view of the brand. It's not that it's a different Puma that I deal with when I am at one channel and a very different Puma when I am at a different channel, right? So that whole piece around data, weaving data, right, becomes extremely very, very critical for us. Now, there are multiple approaches to that. One is, okay, you have the big bang approach where you identify all the customer touch points, bring in all the data together, try to weave the story, right? And then try to run analytics and render this data to the customer touch point so that you can elevate the experience there. But what we've realized is a better approach than that is to find the right questions that you want to answer, right experiences that you want to deliver, and solve for them. For example, right now for us, we want to automate our entire marketing so that we have the same communication across offline and online. That's the problem we are solving. We take all the signals from the various touch points that can solve that problem, right? The right amount of data in the right systems that can enable us to communicate to the consumers at the right point. That's step one for us. Once that happens, then we can expand this to other channels, like for example, your customer support, your how you will do a merchandising, etc. Right, so that kind of builds up. But I think the approach, like I think Prakash mentioned, it's a journey, right, where you build towards it, but you have the end goal in mind, but you build the components scalable, that are pluggable, and walk towards that journey. So that's the key approach that we're following.
Interesting. So one quick last question before we head for a wrap up, and that is basically that, is there anything called a quick win when it comes in, when it comes to creating a great CX? And if the answer is yes, how can a brand achieve that? So can you leave the audience with a proof of the pudding?
I guess just the answer is yes, right? There's always a quick win, right? And that quick win is not, again, is identified by what is it that your customer is struggling with the most, and what is it that, and how quickly can you address that? And from that experience, what else can you build, right? And it is unique to you, Mr. In each of the brands, and I'm sure there are plenty of such examples. I'm sure Jackson has his own point of view in terms of the first quick win that they did as a project. We keep seeing this across multiple customers. Sometimes a quick win is just to get a store probably online, because that was the biggest struggle in terms of access. The second one could, in some other cases where it is to actually bring, integrate the store and the digital experiences in a common way, so that you don't want, that's the first win that you may want to do. For somebody else, it could be something as simple as providing a service channel which is completely integrated with all your sales channels, so that that becomes the differentiating customer experience point. We keep seeing examples of this nature depending on each customer being in different stages of evolution. And at that point in time, for each project, we look at what are the first quick win that you want to do. In this agile world, speed world, that's the only way. I would say there is no other way. You have to keep looking at getting a quick wins, going back and in these worlds, going back to the CFO and getting the next dollar that you need to spend.
Prakash and Jackson.
Yes, I absolutely agree. There are absolutely quick wins, and especially in these times, you have to hustle, right? You don't have the luxury of building projects that are like 1 year long. The customer expects you to quickly act, and I think from a team, I think you have to build that DNA in the team, which kind of always keeps thinking about these quick wins, quick experiments, quick wins. Even if it moves the needle incrementally, that's a win. Like, how do you optimize your search? You think of new payment options. How do you think about serviceability of pin codes, right? And you will have to have first the mentality in the people, the DNA. You will have to have systems and processes that allow this quick turnaround, right? And then you have to allow people to fail. You do the quick turnaround. 50% of the time you have a success, 50% of the time you might not, but you keep experimenting. And I think COVID is the best time to do this. Yeah, Prakash.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I agree with Jackson and Dallas. So I think I just want to take two steps back and forth on the quick wins. I think as a frame on quick wins, there are many quick wins. It's contextualized, right? There are customer segments who do not have a D2C channel at all online, and the quick win is to create a D2C channel. That's the first quick win from a CX perspective. There are customer segments who have a great D2C channel, but then they need to vertically optimize certain operations or certain pieces of supply chain, which are a quick win, where they, as Jackson clearly mentioned, you need to enhance the platform and take it forward from there, right? And then there are certain D2C customers which are at an evolved stage, like Zara, for example. They spent a lot of money using AI, getting amazing data, and then there are many quick wins for them, from their perspective. But I think the one thought I would like to leave it is, more than quick wins, at least having seen more than 500 brands globally, we have always seen customers who succeed the most are customers who just don't look at quick wins, but they also look at quick losses. Because that's very important. Because if you look at Amazon, for example, which is a oft repeated example, Amazon even today invests 12% of their revenue on R&D and innovation. The retail industry in the US invests to 1.8%. Amazon invests 12%, right? And Amazon till date had about 45 to 50 failures projects, right? Amazon Money, or so it's the tinkering mindset, the ability to experiment is very important in addition to quick win, because
you might have a quick loss, but if you have a DNA of not blaming for the loss and just keep at it, I think you are going to evolve as a more powerful player than just focusing on the quick win, right? That's my 2 cents at it. Right? That
Thank you very much, gentlemen. This has been an afternoon so well spent, and it's been fascinating listening to insights, anecdotes, and some phrases like what just came now, quick losses, which I'm sure there's a lot that not just me, but also our audience is going to be taking away from this session. Once again, thank you very much for coming and joining us this afternoon for this enriching session. See you all on the other side.
Bye-bye.
thank you.
Prasad.
Pleasure was, and it's great to interact with industry veterans like Dallas and Jackson, and also with Arundhati ma'am. Pleasure is ours. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Prakash.